with your experience across AWS, Azure, and multiple GX certificates, what are the most common cloud security mistakes organizations are still making?
The biggest ones that I see continually are like secrets in your code, not committing a secret, committing a OpenAI API key or something to your code Git repository, and that not properly cleaning it. A lot of times, especially in the cloud, I feel like it's really comes down to hygiene, right? Are your storage buckets public or are they private? Are your databases public or are they private? Are things encrypted where they should be? Are you giving over permissions? But really today, the things that I see all seem to stem from bad, key management or stolen credentials, right? Somebody steals a credential or steals like a primary refresh token from a global administrator and is able to do whatever they want because they bypassed two-factor. They bypassed all that work that, Microsoft went through and your team went through to enable those features and make sure they were working. So really, I think, ensuring things are using SSO where you can, and then using OAuth and identity federation for, both the human user and the workloads, right? Could be an LLM, it could be a container. At the end of the day, we need to have no permanent access keys, and we need to have temporary tokens that expire, right? Because what that does is it forces the attacker to come back and get a new set of tokens. And every time they got to come back to the watering hole, it's another opportunity for us to potentially catch them, potentially stop them from doing something bad.
Welcome to the show, Go.
Hey, nice to be here.
Okay. Before we actually started recording, I was telling him how he looked like someone I've seen before. I think someone who has seen that.
Yeah. I
Jack.
commonly get, Jack Black, any large, a fat guy with a beard that's kind of funny. That be like, hey, that could be you, Zach Galifianakis. It really depends on the era of your life. But yeah, absolutely. Not the first time I've heard it. It won't be the last. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. First of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You've been the guy who does cloud security engineering for quite some time, and you're currently at Paychex, which is an elite security professional who transitioned from the background in theater and creative writing. He specializes in cloud security and infrastructure as code, building security tools using Golang and Node.js, with the top certificates like CISSP, GCIH, AWS, Azure. He also uses his expertise for pro bono digital safety work. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great summary. I definitely made a hobby out of pursuing certifications over the years, and definitely have been in, cloud security for a long time. I got my CISSP in 2016, so I'm feeling old for sure. But yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. I was a creative writer. I was actually not. I'm not supposed to be here today. You know what I mean? I was gonna write movies and plays and sketches and be like Jack Black, be like the funny guy, right? But life has a funny way of working out, and I sort of stumbled into IT, right? I was always pretty handy with computers, not very good with like lawn equipment. I recall one time, like my dad was like, "Hey, I'll give you an allowance if you mow the lawn." And I mowed the lawn and I did such a bad job that he was like, "Actually, I need somebody to make a spreadsheet for me. And you learn how to use this software." And so I was always kind of I wouldn't say a techie guy, right? But I always was comfortable with computers, comfortable with technology. And then, my wife was with child and I was making like funny movies, and I realized like, oh, I'm going to have a kid. I have to grow up. So I sort of very quickly became the IT guy I was probably always supposed to become. But I definitely look back on those years with lots of fondness, but truly found like my home and my passion with, cybersecurity, working in technology for sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting journey from writing movies to actually becoming now a profession in cybersecurity. That's one. If it was a movie, it would be a best-selling.
Yeah, well, hey, if it was a movie, I probably would have been able to pay my student loans off from that exercise. If it was a movie, maybe who knows? I could probably still make it. I definitely enjoy making people laugh, having a good time. Right, I'm always a good time guy. So, but that said, I can definitely be considered the personality hire. of any team that I'm put on, I'm gonna be the guy like trying to crack jokes, trying to make people comfortable, that kind of thing.
Yes. So if you are to talk about your journey, you from creative writing to threat to creative writing and theater to cloud security, that is actually unconventional. What sparked the transition into cybersecurity?
Sysadministration work. I was like a one-man band, sort of very
Yay.
small company, kind of like the only IT guy, right? So I spent a lot of time in the trenches resetting email passwords and doing lots of different things involving technology. Could be from like storage servers and CFS to like, cloud security or identity and access management, like you name it. But I was always really interested in, cybersecurity in general. And in the times where like nobody wanted to hire me to do cybersecurity, this is kind of a hack, but you can fake it till you make it. And so what I did was with some friends, I started a security consultancy and we would go around to local businesses and help them, right, with problems that they were having. It could be they needed to be PCI compliant or they needed disaster recovery solutions, right? We would go really hard in solving those problems for our customers. And it gave me a lot of valuable experience. And also no one is able to take it away from your resume, right? Like if you're working for yourself, if you're a self-starter and you're finding problems and solving problems, like if you get in a job interview, what is somebody going to say? No, you didn't start your own company. Like, it's not going to happen. Right. So I basically took those opportunities, and every time we got a new job, I would learn something, could be Ansible, could be Docker, some new hard technology, or at least hard for me at the time. Right. Kubernetes, you name it. And I would, in a couple of months, get really familiar with that technology and then move on to another technology. Because in security, right, we're kind of, we're touching everything from the virtual machine, the hypervisor, the MDM device, right? Could be a phone, could be a laptop. So I just tried to get my hands on as much as I could. And then over time, I built up enough credibility with that consultancy. Like we were able to apply to be like AWS partners. And, for our small company, that was a big deal. And then it was easier to kind of get your bona fides, if you will, where hey, I work with AWS directly, right? So when I go to a customer, I say, hey, we're partners with AWS, right? AWS brings us new opportunities to help different their customers solve different problems in security. So after that, though, I was able to find like a full-time cloud security role and step into that. And over time, I kind of grew to be, I guess, the cloud security engineer I always wanted to be, right? For a while, it was kind of ambiguous. Like, what is security engineering? What is cloud security engineering? It can be hard to wrap your head around all of the intricacies. But as I've gotten more experience, I realized like it all counted and it all mattered. And it's what you can do with the experience. Not instead of waiting for somebody to come to me with an opportunity, I try to make the opportunity for myself, right? Uh, could be in my home lab at home. It could be at work. Could be in my own personal like cloud environment that I use for learning. All of it's important and all of it matters.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. One is understanding there's an opportunity out there. Two is how best can I exploit it? So you decide, okay,
Sure.
let me,
Right.
go as
Right.
a consultant
100%.
and then see how to help these guys with what the challenges they're having. Build the
Absolutely.
credibility, then come to market and be endorsed by other organizations.
Right. It really helped me at the time. I hated it. Right. I was like, man, it would be so cool if somebody just saw that I had the potential to do this. And a lot of that was also on me. Part of my like security journey and becoming like a security person or a full-time security hire is that I wasn't telling anybody what I was learning or what I was doing, right? I was spending hours grinding away at hard problems, but I always had a problem bragging about myself. I always felt like, oh, if I posted something on LinkedIn or if I talk about this, I'm gonna feel gross. It's gonna feel like I'm asking for attention or I'm begging for attention. But the truth is, if you could be like the baddest security person in the world that knows every scripting language and every framework and it can make any buffer overflow, right? You're not telling your friends and you're not telling your family and you're not telling your peers that this is what you can do or what you want to do, they can never help you. Right. So I talk to a lot of people who are trying to transition careers from like anything into cyber or anything into IT or cloud, right? A lot of career changing conversations I've had with people. And the number one thing that people are frustrated with is, right, like, I don't know how to get the experience. I don't know how to say what I'm doing to somebody else, right? Even like I've had people who are like, they already work in IT. They already, quote unquote, do this every day. And then when they get into interviews, they have a hard time translating what they do and how that relates to security. So I love interviews. I love going on job interviews because it's a large test of like, do you like me? Yes or no? Right. That's one thing. But also like being a good interviewer is just one part of the equation. Right. So if you can make it so that your resume is like the weakest part, that's kind of the way I feel about myself. Right. My resume is the weakest part of my whole situation. And if you get me in a room and you talk to me, I can translate so much better the stories and the value that I bring because we can have a conversation. Whereas the resume static thing by itself doesn't necessarily get you the job, right? What I'm hoping for is that resume gets me to the HR person to that first screening call. Because if I can talk to the HR person for that first screening call, or I can talk to the recruiter, I can probably talk to the hiring manager because I have a good way of understanding taking the complex stuff that I do and boiling it down to like, this is very simple. This is what I do every day, right? And whenever I'm having conversations on like career stuff, like in an interview, it's important for me at least. It's important to kind of lead the interview, lead the conversation. So, for instance, if I join an interview and the hiring manager says, you know, here's a little bit about the role, there's going to be containers and there's going to be cloud security and there's going to be AI, right? What I'm doing in my head is writing mental notes. I'm going to tell you how I'm good at containers. I'm going to show you how I know about AI, and I'm going to hit all the things that you're looking for because I could do any of this, right? Whatever problem you have for me, I could 100% figure it out and get it solved because I've been doing this long enough. I've seen a lot of problems. I can learn anything. But being able to translate what you do directly to the person who's like looking for that is huge, and I've had success with it in the past with, where I work at Paychecks, obviously. Shout out to my current manager, he's the best. So, anyway, hopefully that helps, sorry. A little
Uh,
rambling.
Yeah, it was a bit of rambling, but it brought the point up. So, you describe yourself as zero budget and negative influence guy. What does
Sure,
that
yeah.
mindset actually mean in the real world of security?
Great question. So, the reason that I put that there, I mean, it's probably not for, like, everybody who's maybe looking to transition, but when you hit a certain point in your career, and that could just mean like I work at a certain place now. You're going to get people hitting you up all day asking to sell you things, right? So when you work at an organization, there's companies out there that spend all day going, what company could we sell our product to? And who works at those companies, right? And so they'll come to you on LinkedIn and they'll say, hey, Jared, I think you would be a great fit for X product, right? Hey, Jared, I'd love it if your company could spend $12 million over 3 years with us or whatever, right? Whatever kind of pipe dream they might have. So I say on my LinkedIn, like, I have zero budget and I have negative influence because I want people to know when they're reaching out to me, the thing I care about is like doing my job. And I don't necessarily always care about like getting a sale over the line, right? Tech salespeople, it's a really hard job. Like it's an incredibly hard job. And, we should be very, very, very gracious to everybody, right, in the industry, because it's all important. But for me, what ends up happening is people reach out and then they think Jared's my guy and he's going to get me a sale. And so I have zero budget and I have negative influence, meaning instead of having I'm NSF on influence, right? Non-sufficient funds. I've got, the push notifications from Chase are coming through because sometimes people might get the wrong idea, right? But for maybe like other people, that probably wouldn't be a good tagline to have. I definitely have had like conversations with LLMs where I'm like trying to maybe make my LinkedIn more attractive and they're like, the headline. Ooh, the headline. But again, you also have to be able to sell yourself, right? And part of selling yourself in this industry, in any industry, is like showing your personality. I try and be a little funny with it. I try and be a little humorous in my LinkedIn just to show like I'm a person. And if you're a person, we can probably get along. But yeah, the zero budget also to me also applies with like solutions. My company obviously buys, commercial off the shelf security products. But I personally don't like to just go directly to like, what can we purchase to solve this problem? And I like to think if I had to do it myself, if I had to do it for free, what would I do? Right. Because then I really understand the value of what this product's, bringing me. Whatever it's a CSPM, DSPM, whatever it is, if I was to do it myself and understand like how hard that would be, then it makes it a lot easier to say, hey, let me pay somebody to do that for me. But I at least feel like I know what I'm buying. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Now I want you to break it down a bit because you've highlighted some key areas. Because sometimes, like for me as an analyst, you'll find that you are supposed to help recommend products, right? You're given that task of recommending products. What is that thing that you consider first at the end of the day that this is something we're looking at? Is it, we start with the problem, right? You're trying to solve a specific problem, right?
100%.
Yes. Then we follow by looking at the products. How best can we look at the products without that bias of just going to Gartner and then picking the top ranking item and still being objective? You get my what I'm saying?
Sure. No, completely agree. Shout out to Gartner. I've got some friends that work there. They're a cool organization. But I think every problem in an organization, especially when it comes to security, it can be really easy to get wrapped up. I think of it like buying a new car, right? When you go to the car dealership, everybody's so nice. Everybody's so nice, and the sales guy's nice. And the person at reception is like, can I get you a coffee? Can we get you some water? You want a hot dog? They'll get you whatever you want, right? And they take you into the room to negotiate with the finance manager. And the whole time you've been told, hey, this new car is going to solve all your problems. And I think that happens a lot with commercial products, right? Where a security vendor says, hey, here's the pitch, here's the value of our product. When you install this, you can sleep at night because you don't have to worry. But it's not just as simple as you like write a check and you have a dream car and the car drives perfectly all the time and there's no problems, right? You have to learn the car. You have to know the maintenance schedules. You have to know, like, how can I get it fixed? How can I get it serviced? Like all of these things, you're going to think like 50,000 miles down the road. And the same thing applies, I think, for security vendors, because I've definitely gotten the song and dance from EDR companies and other companies where it's like, yeah, this would set up in your environment like a snap and we don't need to tune anything. And none of it's true, right? On day 3, after the professional service engagement has ended and, you're a fancy new customer, getting those like new customer meetings at the vendor, right? Like, what does that look like for you as the person who has to like manage this solution and then recommend for a renewal at 1 year or 3 years, et cetera? So I try and think like, when evaluating a product, number one, look past like the propaganda. I do the same thing for certifications too. Look past like the vendor propaganda of what like AWS wants you to use. What are you actually going to have to use? Because your company's going to have their own specific goals and budgets that they need to meet and vendors that they have to buy from, right? And a lot of that comes down to like politics that's got nothing to do with me or you, right? And showing up every day and putting in your Jira tickets. So look past the promise of sales. Again, there's lots of great tech salespeople out there, but like just understand that they're showing you a demo, right? And the demo has been developed to show you a demo that's nice and smooth and everything works. But like outside of that demo, outside of a POC, what other problems could go wrong and how can the company help solve them, I guess.
That's interesting. Now, what about the product itself? When you're past the POC, how do you,
Yeah.
as a person who is going to use the tool, look beyond just the POC, look beyond just the fanciness of the product and how good their AI will revolutionize your SOC? Yeah.
I think, to me, the big problem that I've seen is like it's adoption plus like operationalization, which is a big word that has a mouthful for sure in it. But really what that means to me is like all of the features of your product. It could be a firewall, it could be a antivirus, whatever it is, right? Are all those features turned on? Are we using everything that we're licensed for? Are we getting the benefit of what the vendor sold us, right? The song and dance was beautiful. It's like, if you go to like a Vegas show and they have professional ballet dancers and professional gymnasts doing beautiful tricks. And then they said, come up on stage and you do it, sir. I would look like an idiot, right? Because I haven't been
That's a serious
practicing
trap.
this. So a lot of times the trap is like, look at us. We're doing flips. We're doing flops. We look so amazing. Now it's your turn. And your first time doing anything is probably not good, right? Like your first attempt at anything, learning anything is, probably going to be a failure. That's at least my experience, right? It takes me I'm a dummy. It takes me a long time to understand complex topics. So, for me, it's how do I get as good as you? Sometimes you'll see someone work in a terminal and you'll be like, oh my God, this person is flying. Their fingers, they'll never type anything wrong. And they get information so fast. How'd they do that? Right? There's people out there that would look at a person who does something fast and does something cool and they go like, whatever, I could do that, but whatever, they'll dismiss it. To me, I go, can you show me? That's so cool. What you just did, so cool. Please show me how to do that so that next time I can do it. Like I want to learn the kung fu tricks that everybody knows. It could be the terminal, it could be like containers. If you're better than me, I can't wait to learn from you. That's why I'm here. That's why I was put on this planet, is to like learn all the cool hacks, right? And be able to share maybe like 10% of what I understand out to the world. That would make me happy. But, you have to be able to look at like your solutions engineers and stuff from the product side and be able to ask those questions. And sometimes it even takes like asking the questions and then asking like, hey, is it possible to get somebody who's like an expert, right? Like I'm deploying Azure X. I want to talk to an expert on Azure X so that I can get on board as fast as possible. Because if I did it myself, I might be much slower, struggle a lot more.
Yeah. So walk us through a recent cloud posture or ISC, that is infrastructure as code issue you found in production and how you triaged and remediated it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm responsible for some container security pieces at my organization. And I have most recently committed some code to improve the security posture of all of our serverless container deployments. So I submitted code to our big cloud infrastructure repo and it was merged. And literally the first person who went to use it hit like a big failure. I thought I had really considered all the use cases and all of the ways that this code that I wrote could be used, right? But I actually missed like a big part of it, which is that if you weren't doing exactly what I wanted you to do, the thing wouldn't work. So I had it in my head. The developer is going to use this, and then this is going to create secrets in your cloud provider. Could be Azure Key Vault, could be AWS Secrets Manager, whatever. GCP Secrets Manager, doesn't matter. that Terraform code generated those secrets for you. But not everybody wanted to make secrets because they didn't have IAM permissions to grant certain, compute resources to read those things. So they were coming up with workarounds on my code because I didn't think through all of the use cases. And I didn't think, what would a regular Joe developer run into when they have this problem? The people I was testing it with, they had global admin. They had no restrictions. So they had no problems. But the minute like a normal sort of muggle user like myself tested it alone, there were a number of problems. So it definitely took some time to figure out how to like approach the identity piece best. But we came to solution of essentially making it easier for them to create those secrets out of band and pull them in later. And it works great.
Interesting. Again, with your experience across AWS, Azure, and multiple GX certificates, what are the most common cloud security mistakes organizations are still making?
The biggest ones that I see continually are like secrets in your code, not committing a secret, committing an OpenAI API key or something to your code Git repository, and that not properly cleaning it. A lot of times, especially in the cloud, I feel like it's really comes down to hygiene, right? Are your storage buckets public or are they private? Are your databases public or are they private? Are things encrypted where they should be? Are you giving over permissions? But really today, the things that I see all seem to stem from bad, key management or stolen credentials, right? Somebody steals a credential or steals like a primary refresh token from a global administrator and is able to do whatever they want because they bypassed two-factor. They bypassed all that work that Microsoft went through and your team went through to enable those features and make sure they were working. So really, I think ensuring things are using SSO where you can, and then using OAuth and identity federation for both the human user and the workloads, right? The could be an LLM, it could be a container. At the end of the day, we need to have no permanent access keys, and we need to have temporary tokens that expire, right? Because what that does is it forces the attacker to come back and get a new set of tokens. And every time they got to come back to the watering hole, it's another opportunity for us to potentially catch them, potentially stop them from doing something bad.
So how do you design CTFs? I don't know if you keep on playing CTFs. So how do you design CTFs or exercises to teach cloud security concepts? And can listeners replicate a simple one at home or at work?
Yeah, absolutely. I do have, we have a few CTFs in the works. My wife and I were a little behind on releasing the first one, but it's coming soon. But, I'm a big fan of doing it at home, right? Doing it for free. Why spend money when you could not spend money? Sometimes I think we get wrapped up in like this fancy course costs $2,000 and I could take that course and I would learn so much. It would solve all my problems in the same way that a vendor can come to you and say, hey, our solution solves all your problems. People can say, hey, my course, if you spend $500, $2,000, $10,000, it'll teach you everything you need to know about quote unquote security. At the end of the day, when we spend that money, right, you might spend that $500 and take the course or get halfway through it and be like, it didn't do everything I wanted. So then how can you design a curriculum for yourself? And this is what I do. Everybody's different. I heavily rely on AI to help me build scenarios and tutorials and things that I can walk through. You know what I mean? I've open sourced some stuff in terms of like Kubernetes training and Terraform training and things like that, where I have like scenarios. And I built that because I'm a hands-on keyboard person. I learn by doing. So to, watch a YouTube video isn't enough for me. I need to watch the YouTube video and then I need to like put it into practice. And AI helps me do that because what is AI good at? It's good at coding sometimes, right? But it could be wrong. But what is it also good at? It's good at making up stuff that's fake and not real. If you want to use AI for something, then tell AI, make me 10 log files that are squid logs. Let me go through and examine them, right? Make me a PCAP and let me see if I can take that PCAP and run it through Wireshark or something, right? And see if it's different from any other PCAP on my network. By talking to the LLM and like coming to it with a specific set of things of, hey, this is what I want to learn. This is what I need to learn. And this is the exercise I have in mind to perhaps get me to that point. And it's been really, really helpful. I definitely use Claude for it. And Codex, the various cloud platform stuffs. But before that, it would just be I was write Terraform, right? Before AI was big, I would write Terraform. I would put the scripts in the user data for the EC2 that would launch my virtual machine, and I would go ahead and do that. So if you, especially in this day and age and in this job market, if you wait for the opportunity for somebody to teach you, it's never going to come along. But if you can get yourself 60% of the way there by just learning on your own at night in your spare time with like actual goals behind it, right? You don't say, I'm going to learn AI security. You say, today I want to learn about MCP. Like, what can I get out of a conversation with an LLM about MCP security and OAuth authentication or API keys, right? Like, again, it's not all perfect. It's not all right, but I take that output, right? The stuff that is outputted, and then I go do that stuff step by step by myself, right? I don't like let it do it for me, because that to me is skipping a crucial process of learning, at least for myself. When I do things physically, you can't feel it, right? But whenever you do something and you're learning a new skill, your brain is creating neural pathways, right? So when you learn something new, and you type on the keyboard and you're getting really good at AWS CLI or Azure CLI, right? Your brain is getting you better at that. And when I go to sleep at night, my brain's like, how can we get better at this? How can we solve this problem for Jared? If you're not doing that, if you're not using the tools day in, day out, figuring out like what you know well and what you don't know well, how can you get better? So making sure you really can take hold of like what I'm actually weak at is topic X and Y. Here's how I'm going to get better at topic X and Y. I've got some sort of structured learning. I think it can be really big for me at least.
Yeah, I think you have broken down also something, but I think you need to add a bit of caveat to it. Is if someone is planning on setting up cloud security, what are the first 30 to 60 days? What would it look like, and what would someone require to actually reach that level you have reached?
Sure. So maybe I'm different than everybody else. I know that it's very tempting to say like, what's my 30, 60, 90 days to break in or like to get a requisite amount of knowledge? But I think of it a little different. And when I've talked to people who are transitioning or trying to like level up, what I like to say is this: it's important to understand that when you sign up for the the cybersecurity learning, right? There's no course that's going to teach you everything that there is to know. So if you're going to spend 30, 60, 90 days doing something, I would recommend spending 30 days and really understanding how you learn best, right? What's a way that when you were when you were in school, right? Teachers that you hated and classes that you hated. Was it because of the content or was it because of how it was taught, right? So did you just need a different learning methodology? Instead of hearing it from a teacher, maybe you needed to do it more. Maybe you needed to see it done a certain way, a certain number of times before it clicked, right? So the reason I say that is not because you can't like learn everything that you might need to learn to be a junior in 90 days. You can. But I don't like people having the idea of like, I did my 90 days and now I'm ready. And now, but there's no job or there's no progress, right? Progress on anything is not linear. You will find peaks and valleys and plateaus all the time. This especially is true in security, where there's infinite depth, right? You could learn about CPU architectures and learn at a low level, a Mac uses an ARM chip, and like a Dell uses an Intel or an AMD chip. And here's the differences between those, right? But you could also go way deep and understand how both of those architectures actually run on a hardware level, right? And that you got to find a happy medium. Your job is not necessarily to learn everything there is about cybersecurity or security in general. Your job is to get good at learning. Because what's going to happen at you're a knowledge worker, right? And what does a knowledge worker do? Look stuff up and do it, right? And the stuff that we're talking about today, I could tell you go do security plus. I could tell you go do network plus, all of that. In 10 years, 15 years, those tests aren't going to look the same, right? But you're still going to have to be studying, and you're still going to have to be taking certifications and getting CPEs. So my advice would be like, yes, spend time studying for CompTIA certifications. Spend time studying for, vendor certs that are important to you. Could be AWS, Microsoft, Google, whatever, firewall vendors. Like 100% do those things, but understand that like you're getting on sort of a professional treadmill that is, you're like a shark. You got to keep moving because the industry is going to always go, right? The industry is always moving. And so you have to continually get new, fresh, oxygen filled water into your gills so you can keep going. That's my metaphor for knowledge. You can kind of, not get exhausted, right? Because I've seen people, what they do is they go, I'm going to learn everything I need to learn, and I'm going to be ready in 6 months to get hired. And the truth is, I think it breaks down like this, right? Book learning, it's like 10% of what you learn in a book actually like gets absorbed, right? You can watch somebody do something, that's like 30%. But then like actively doing it, that's the rest of the 100% of the pie. Is like hands-on experience, being at a job, working, doing the thing, right? So I encourage you, if you're going to do anything, if you're getting started, live hands on, learn something, and then take it practical as soon as you feel comfortable. Because the job is not, I watched a YouTube video. The job is not, I passed an AWS certification, which, like, I've passed plenty of AWS certifications, right? Like, that you take the test, when you take a vendor test like AWS or Azure, you have to give the answer that AWS and Azure want. That's the name of the game, right? They made that certification not to make you money because you got certified, but because you were going to go convert them some cloud customers, right? It could be at your day job. You could be a consultant. A lot of the solutions architect stuff in AWS is consultant geared, right? But they want you to say when you go to a customer, yeah, but you can use all the AWS services, right? They want you to be like all bought in on AWS. And that's just not how most companies are. They're going to be in a bunch of different places, and you got to meet them where they are and provide the solution that solves the problem, not the solution that sells AWS or sells Azure. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes plenty of sense. Most of the times, I see many people struggling to enter the industry, and it's usually that same issue that you find that obviously certificates are very good for in terms of getting you the foot inside the door for HR and all that. But the problem comes in if you actually don't know how to do the thing. That's where problems are coming. And there's no way of actually knowing how to do the thing apart from doing your labs, trying out different things, tinkering here and there. Definitely, we don't expect you to be having those commercial tools as others, but it's good to start from where you are and see what works and what doesn't work.
Sure. And I'll be honest too, on the commercial tool piece, like for me, when it comes to a tool, if I can't afford to use Splunk in my home lab, or if I can't afford to use Wiz in my personal cloud, like I literally just go find another solution that allows me to do the same thing, right? Something that tells you the security posture of your cloud environment. Some of the cloud providers give you that information for free. So like, what can you get started with today with no money, right? $0 to learn. And then once you've done everything that you can learn for $0 and you're happy with where you're at, then maybe look at like, what can I spend $10 on, right? To get more experience. But there's always another open source solution or another way to solve the same problem. And that stuff works one-to-one, right? Like I couldn't use Wiz, so like I wrote my own CSPM scanner. And I learned a lot about how Wiz works, not because I looked at Wiz's code, but because I did exactly what Wiz does on my own, right? I was like, how would I do this? How would I architect this again for $0? So, and there, you find, if an open source project can solve your problem, go for it. If not, it might be helpful for you to, vibe code something together, right?
Yeah.
Working with a free tool is better than working with no tool. And if you can tell me, hey, I know how to sort through logs with SQL, or I know how to sort through logs in Loki, in Grafana, because I don't have Splunk, great. Guess what? When you have Splunk, you'll learn how to use Splunk and it'll be fine, right? But
Yeah.
you understand the concept of I'm searching for X and this is how I have to find it. At the end of the day, the job descriptions make every job out there seem horrible. Also, the job market makes every job out there seem like you have to know everything, you have to be everything. That's just not practically my experience, right? My experience is the job description is incredibly intimidating, and the job day to day is like I have 10 Excel spreadsheets that I have to look at, right? Like, so take away that like fear of the unknown in terms of what the job description says and think about it practically. What it means is I've got a bunch of reports that I've got to collate and run and process and understand where the risk is out of all of these CSV files. So again, we can do that for free with Python, with DB, with any number of tools out there. We can do it for free, and it's still valid experience.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, we have drawn towards the end, and first of all, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I've got a
Sure, of
lot of
course.
information about how best to start things, because sometimes you feel like you need that fancy tool, fancy training, which you can't afford at the moment, and then it becomes like a way of procrastinating in one way or the other. That's one thing I've also realized.
Waiting for perfect.
Yeah,
Waiting for,
perfect.
hey, if I only took this SANS class. I can't tell you how many times I thought, if I just take this one SANS class, then I'll know everything. But it turns out SANS keeps making classes because there's new things to do every day in this field, right?
Yeah.
And especially with like, I just want to point out, because I know we're wrapping up here, especially with AI and LLMs, right? The security infrastructure for that stuff and how people are making these decisions, those things are being done now. They're being made today, and you can be a part of that, right? We can all, this is like, I mean, I don't want to say this is like Bitcoin in 2011, right? But like in security right now, I don't know that there's ever been somebody going, we need to secure the most important hype topic. If we go back 10 years, it would be blockchain, right? Every company was putting blockchain, integrating blockchain, renting you Bitcoin, whatever it is, right? But the market shift, the hype is now AI and LLMs, right? And the security guidance for that's still getting written. Like you know as much as everybody else out there about, the OWASP LLM top 10 because it's fresh. You know what I mean? There's nobody who has a better leg up than you today to like find a way into something, right? And I know career changers, like a lot of people look at tech and they go, there's great salaries, there's great benefits. I want that tech job. I want to work from home. Whatever your reasons might be, right? And people they want that. They want the benefits. They want the competitive salary, but they shy away from the hard things like Kubernetes or machine learning, right? Without understanding like the reason why those people are getting paid so much is because that stuff's hard. So don't be afraid to chase the hard thing. Don't be afraid to find the communities where people are talking about and securing the hard thing, because you can learn a lot in those spaces, right?
Finally, I would want you to give us your final parting shots. I know you've rambled through your parting shots like 3 times now.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so give us your parting shots, and where can people find you, find your work? Or if they are planning on employing you, where can they get you?
Well, I'm swiftly probably becoming unemployable, but if you are interested in looking at some of the stuff I have made, you can go to my personal blog is jaredgore.com, where I have such hits as querying the Epstein files with DuckDB and others. And then I also have shark.cloud, https://shark.cloud, exactly like it sounds. And I put up a lot of cloud security education there, as well as our soon to be released CTFs and stuff. So, but up there today is, courses on Terraform and containers that are like pretty full featured. So there's a lot to chew on. And then obviously I'm on LinkedIn. If anything I said here helped you and you want to reach out and ask a question, feel free. Just don't try and sell me anything. I have zero budget, negative influence. Yeah, of course. Of
Okay.
course. I appreciate being on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. See you.
All right. Bye.